Sway in the morning, Shade 4-5. Keep the applause going for this man, this young man. One of my favorite shows to watch is the Dr. Oz show for a number of reasons. Because my grandmother worked in the medical field for 35 years. Mm-hmm. So did my mother retired from the medical field, Highland Hospital in Oakland, California. And so my entire life, I was hearing phrases and terminology that I did not understand. Yeah. But anytime we had an issue, internal or otherwise, my mother was breaking it down like an encyclopedia of, even to this day, when any of our family members go to the doctor, she has to come with them to know the proper things to ask if we're not getting proper feedback, if the feedback isn't adequate enough. And she even suggests things to the doctors that diagnose our family members. And a lot of that information costs a lot of money. But when you watch the Dr. Oz show, you get free medical advice.
Woo! From the experts.
From the expert. Welcome him back to the show, the one and only Dr. Oz is here.
Well, God bless you all.
Season 12 is here.
That's
crazy.
Coming, brother. Season 11, but season 12 is even coming. Dr. Oz, how you been?
I'm doing very well, Sway. Thank you very much. I love the energy in here. Thanks for the kindness, for the applause, and kudos to your family for being in the medical field.
Okay.
Because a lot of communities only get their health care because someone happens to work in a hospital. And I remember when I was a medical student, I knew nothing.
Yeah.
People come asking me. I'd always ask the nurses. I'd ask the folks working at the hospital because they knew a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
And so that's how you pass the word along.
You pass the word along. And then you talk about health insurance. I mean, I don't know what happened to the health insurance conversation in the political realm. I mean, health reform was a big topic, a couple of years back, and now we're not hearing a whole lot about it. Where are we in this country when it comes to health reform?
There's a lot of nihilism.
Okay.
People just have given up hope, and they shouldn't, because we can fix healthcare in America. We have enough money in the system.
Okay.
And can we put more money in? Yeah. But that's not really the big issue. The question is, how do we make more out of the money we're putting in there? And the big thing lacking in America is most Americans don't have a medical home. They don't have someone they can just quick call like you would with your mom and say, hey, listen, I got an issue here, I got a sore throat, what do I do about it? So you'd run off to the hospital to get checked out, or more likely to the ER. It's very expensive, very inefficient, fragmented care, and the worst health care is the bad health care you get. Because now you're wasting money and you're getting things done to you that you didn't need to be done in the first place. And I've had everyone, well, not all, but most of the Democratic candidates for president are coming on one by one. And I've had this conversation with them and the Republican side as well, because I don't think we're having the right debate. We're rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic, trying to figure out how to put money here or there. We ought to just make sure everyone realizes that if they own their health, which is primarily what my show is about, getting you to do things in your own home, fix the battle of health in your kitchen, living room, bedroom. That's how we'll make America healthier. And with that, we'll have plenty of money to go around. And without that, no system is going to work.
No system. Dr. Oz is here. You're on the Council of Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition, right?
I am. This is a council started by Dwight Eisenhower in the 50s, President Kennedy. Every president has had it. And the council is supposed to give advice on these kinds of issues. And so we try to go out there and make noise. I tell you, one thing the council is really focused on is we don't have enough coaches anymore.
What do you mean?
Literally, there are not enough people coaching in high schools. There's all kinds of rules that limit the number, and then a lot of folks who used to coach don't have time, don't have money, don't have flexibility. And you think about it, we don't have a class in Competition 101. How do you learn to compete and thrive and gain self-respect? You don't get that in English class sometimes, or math. It came often because of coaches or people teaching you theater or music. All those groups have been whittled down. And so we don't have enough of the arts and the sports supported in schools, especially underprivileged schools. We have a foundation my wife and I started almost 20 years ago called Health Corps. And it's almost always in underprivileged parts of the country. We touch the lives of hundreds of thousands of young people, teach them about health. And the number one thing we see is there's no mentoring. There's no one out there. If your mom's busy at work and maybe your dad's not in the picture, who's going to catch you and hold you? It's not about a handout. It's about a hand up. Who's going to support you like I got supported when I was coming through the ranks, which from my football coach. And America's competitive because we learn these lessons outside of organized school, and we're sacrificing that we shouldn't.
Dr. Oz, man, he dropping gems. I'm just going to keep firing questions then. Because, I watch you, man, and I remember you spoke out about the hypocrisy when it comes to medical marijuana in the cannabis industry and how it's classified as a Schedule I drug, which is in the same category as heroin and other drugs. Since then, have you saw any gain of understanding of medical marijuana and the uses and how it could benefit folks? Have you seen any gain in the field itself, in the medical field itself? Are people denouncing it still?
Well, there are folks who are going to denounce it, and they're caught up in the old dogma. But the vast majority of people in the know accept that medical marijuana is a good thing. It's going to be part of how we take care of people with chronic conditions like pain, probably better than a lot of things we're currently prescribing. It's safe. You can't die for smoking marijuana unless an accident happens while you're smoking marijuana. There's some concerns. I personally have worries about recreational marijuana only because I don't want young people thinking they have to smoke pot to get through the day.
Yeah.
That's addictive behavior. You wouldn't want any kind of addictive expectation like that. But for the average person who's having an issue, smoke the pot, especially for older Americans, and you're suffering with cancer diagnosis and treatment, or your other issues that start to add up when you get older. I don't know why we wouldn't allow medical marijuana to be more of the foundation of their well-being. And the good news is, pretty much the police and the law enforcement guys know this.
Yeah.
So there's not a big appetite to do anything about medical marijuana because it's pretty safe.
Yeah.
And I think that the medical profession has gotten its head around it. Now we just need one thing to happen: for the federal government to let the states do what they're supposed to be able to do, which is make their own rules. Most states have approved medical marijuana. The federal government shouldn't be in the way. As soon as they say, okay, we get it, we're moving out, then now banking can get involved. You can start financing bigger medical marijuana producers. The price will drop, and it becomes more part of what we do. And I got to say, CBD, which is now all over the place, is really expensive. And if you put a little bit of THC with the CBD, it makes it much cheaper because pot's cheaper than CBD. It's CBD is hard to make, and it'll actually bring down the prices of people who want to do CBD. So across the board, we all benefit.
We all benefit. You don't partake yourself, though.
I've never gotten high, but that's my issue, not medical marijuana's issue.
Okay.
I've never had a reason to take it, and I don't like. I'm a control freak. All heart surgeons are control freaks. We don't want any variables in there.
That might throw off the thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but you would if
absolutely. If I had a bad pain problem, before I took half of the things that would be prescribed to me, narcotics in particular, that are on that Schedule 1 list you mentioned, without question, I'd do medical marijuana. It's much safer.
So, Dr. Oz, you're on the board. You're on the Council of Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Just go knock on the president's door and say, man, what are we going to do about passing this federal law?
I actually have not seen the president of the council. I'm not sure what.
I mean, President Trump.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I mean, I've had President Trump on the show. I've had First Lady Michelle Obama on the show. I've been honored to talk to a lot of folks in positions of power. I don't think this is actually what any of the past presidents have wanted. I think this got caught up in the bureaucracy of the DEA and the FDA. And when I talk to people who are in leadership positions in those groups, they're just waiting for someone else to go first. And I think you're right. At some point, President Trump ought to say, you know what? You guys don't like me anyway. I'm going to do this. And just say, I'm just throwing the gauntlet down. We're just moving on from medical marijuana. Just put one little checkbox over here.
All right. Man, Dr. Oz is here, man. 11th season. I don't know if you ever imagined the show would be on air this long. What are some of the highlights, the standout moments? Well, you mentioned having President Trump and Michelle Obama on the show. What are some of the other ones? Well,
I mean, the famous guests are fun, but the real people are the real special sauce of the show. I mean, people who've been through a lot, who figured it out, who let kindness rule. People have been involved in tragedies. We do a lot of true crime because there's investigative elements to true crime, forensics, and why do people do things they do? And when folks bounce back from that, that's always uplifting. But I'll tell you, one of the most sentinel moments was, I started on Oprah, and Oprah was my partner on the show. So for the first 5-6 years, I was at Oprah University. She was teaching me, and I still remember the first time she came up to my wife and myself. It's Lisa and her were the conspirators, by the way. Marrying my wife was the best thing I ever did.
Okay,
it's 35 years this year. But the two of them said, I think we should launch a show. And I'd never thought about it. It wasn't on my vision board. It never crossed my mind. I'm still in the faculty. I practice medicine at New York Presbyterian Columbia. So I always thought that's what I do my whole career. And I started to realize that America wasn't getting the message about health because we weren't giving it to you. And if we didn't get out of the ivory tower and take some risks and say things that were hard to hear but needed to be said, then we were doing a disservice. And that's our professional commitment because, professions have a civic responsibility. It's not just to uplift the knowledge you have and to police each other. It's also you have an obligation, civic responsibility to speak out on things that matter. And by doing that, people look around and say, you know what? If Oz or Sway or whoever it is said something about medical marijuana, I got to at least revisit the issue.
Let me look it up.
That's exactly it.
Dr. Oz is here. Tracy G.
Yeah, Dr. Oz, although you don't smoke pot, but a drug that you do engage in is fame.
Yeah.
How has that shaped you in a sense? Have you had to put yourself in check, seeing how the potential for it to bloat your ego.
Well, the addictive drug of fame has destroyed plenty of people, especially young folks. We see it all the time because it's so difficult to process. I was blessed not to be famous until I was older in life. So most of my self-worth was not from being famous. And in medicine, when you start thinking you're hot stuff, you kill people. And I've been down that path too. We all have. Everyone in medicine thinks, I got this figured, I got this covered. And then you do something that wasn't the best you could do, and then someone pays the price for it. And so I think I was prepared better than many, but it is an ongoing issue. And I'll tell you what keeps me centered more than anything else. I mentioned her earlier, my wife, Lisa, because in my house, the prosecution never rests. I mean, I don't care what I do. I could have done it different.
Like, shout out to Lisa.
And my mother-in-law's a minister. And Lisa and my wife went to theology school, so I get a lot of doctrine thrown at me. And it doesn't endorse fame as a drug. It doesn't endorse ego getting in the way. And you need to be confident in life. But there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance.
Yes.
And the latter is a real dangerous thing to have.
Dr. Oz.
Dr. Oz, you mentioned about getting older. For somebody like me, I take care of my grandparents. And it's been tough. You know, they're 89 and 99 years old. So mentally,
99.
My grandfather's 99.
When's his birthday?
June 6th. He'll be 100 years old. And my grandmother will be 90 July 19th. And so mentally, I've been starting to try to prepare for certain things. But while they're still here in the past 5 years, I've been dealing with healthcare issues. And my grandmother hears a lot of things. She has a heart condition and arthritis. She wants to smoke medical marijuana. And I'm like, how can you smoke and you have a heart condition? You know, the healthcare issues. What would you say to families or people like myself that have this responsibility now of trying to help assist in the elderly people in your family?
Well, I feel for you. My dad, I just lost him this year, age 93.
Oh, man.
And my mom is in her 80s. And, we talked about it publicly in the show this fall that she's diagnosed with Alzheimer's, which when we lost my dad became more evident because he was the crutch she was leaning on. So a couple bits of wisdom that I've learned in my personal life. And I've also, as a practicing physician, you see a lot of older patients. And so you've got to make sense of what they're going through as well. First off, I try not to bark orders at older people because they usually have it figured out. And sometimes they're not doing what you would do, but it might be the right thing for them.
Yeah.
And included in that is this real desire we have as Americans to stay alive. Because sometimes, although we see it as a loss, I know from my dad towards the end, everyone he loved and cared about had passed on. He'd had an incredible life, grew up in a very poor part of Turkey, was able to come to this country, take great opportunities as an immigrant, was loved by the people Americans who brought him over, and became a great doctor. But at the end, he was done. And so I fought so hard with him to do certain things that he just didn't want to do. The other thing I learned, taking care of my parents, and I see it again, is I don't do things for them. And I'll tell you why. When you do things for people, you make them weak. So when my dad was walking up the stairs, I'd stand behind him just in case, but I'd never help him up the stairs. I want him using those quadriceps muscles. Build that. So I don't carry the luggage for people. I mean, I could, but it's not a kind gesture. It seems kind. But I think that we should be comfortable letting folks stay vigorous as they get older. Because if you look around the world where people live a long time, they're so-called blue zones. Costa Rica, Sardinia, in Japan, there's a blue zone.
Yeah.
These are places where people have daily rigorous activity.
Yeah.
They're just forced to get out of bed. They're forced to do, chores, make their breakfast, show up in life. And as soon as you let people back off that a little bit, they begin to lose a lot of that vigor. They don't think they have a use anymore, and they do, because their wisdom is invaluable to us, as you know. And I just pester them, continue them. I don't know if you've done this yet, but one little exercise is have them tell their story.
Oh, I do that. Yeah.
You do that?
I do that. Yeah.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah, I got my grandma. I have a 95-year-old grandmother and a 107-year-old.
You guys have
grandmother.
great genes.
Yeah,
in
no,
here.
we're not. We're the shit. All right. But what I do is I know there's certain parts of our life that she lights up and becomes just even more energetic. It boosts her energy up when we talk about fishing or recently she saw my brother took her somewhere that really excited her. So I just kind of just keep, hey man, remember that one time we went fishing? And then she'll tell the story over. And
You're there already.
Yeah.
That is a social safety net that's always saved our species, each other. And we don't engage folks wherever they're ready to be engaged. I mean, I'm not going to ask them, nor should you, probably about pop culture. They probably didn't watch the Grammys, or if they did, they didn't know connect the subtlety, but they know things we'll never know.
Yes.
And why not capture that?
That's a good idea because my grandmother especially, so consumed about healthcare and insurance. Like, she is worrying her, and I feel like it's making her more ill. But you're right, just to stories, stories. Have her talk about things that she wants to talk about.
The connectivity is a medicine in itself. And loneliness is the #1 epidemic we have in America.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm making sure they are aware, and it's good for you too, that there's a connection there, that's a real connection. Not just checking the box, not transactional, but it matters to me that I care about you. And I think we all do that.
Yeah.
We have this program that we launched in the show. We have a new one every year, and it's called System 20 for 2020. And the promise is do 20 things, and you'll reduce your age, how old your body feels, and you also, by the way, reduce your chronic illnesses by 20%. And you lose weight if you want to. And one of the key elements of it is don't message people all the time. Pick up the darn phone once in a while and just hear some. What you guys are doing right now, just talking and being heard, our brain is hardwired to see things and recognize and read faces and to hear voices and interpret what they're really getting at, the subtle stuff. That's what our brain, we don't have to have a big brain to go hunting. You need a reptile can go hunting with a walnut-sized brain. Our prefrontal cortex got massively large for those two things. Now, what do you need to be able to read someone's facial expressions and hear what their voice is really saying under the words? Well, you need it because we live in communities. And without that, humans aren't. Look, go one-on-one, me and a baboon, I don't have a prayer.
Yeah.
But me and Sway in there with two baboons, we got a fighting chance.
We got a fighting chance.
Because we can communicate, connect. We're sending messages back and forth.
To the left. To the left.
Duck now.
Duck. Okay, so before
God, that looked painful.
Okay. Real quick to that, too, a lot of times with elderly people, to your point, being alone is a big epidemic. Elderly people could be in a house full of people who don't pay attention to them, who don't pay attention to their needs, don't have conversations. They think they're doing enough by being in the house. You got to communicate. So, but before you go, I know you're from Philadelphia, and we all been talking about Kobe Bryant.
Jeez.
And is there anything you can share about, because you watched him grow up, right? Or
Well, he was, he was known in Philadelphia when he was in high school because the
Yeah.
guy was a phenom, and then he skipped college, so the next people found out about him were the fans of the Lakers than the rest of the world. But the thing about Kobe Bryant, he said it himself. He said, there's no curfew that we can honor more than death. It's going to come at us. And he made a beautiful quote saying that when he was trying to acknowledge that curfew, that he'd walk as slow as he could, and he'd brush every tooth on his way to bed because he didn't want to show up for the curfew time. But it comes for all of us. And many, myself included, are struggling with how this could happen to an icon who did everything right.
Yeah.
Who led by example, and hard work was always the first step that he put in any endeavor. And I think most powerfully, we sit back and say, okay, the circuit breaker got pulled and the world went dark for us. But the deeper wisdom that he's left us with is his legacy, and we got to carry that forward. In the meantime, there are folks who literally are crying and shaken, feeling like they lost a member of their family, because he sort of was for a lot of people. That's how important a role model he was. So talk to folks about it.
Yeah.
I mean, connect. It is worth sharing that, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about because you're crying about someone you didn't personally know. That's how we're all supposed to be. Yeah. That's how when our heroes fall, we're supposed to mourn. That's how it solidifies in our mind. And he was in the change business. He changed us all. Let's remember that.
Amen.
Dr. Oz, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you watch Dr. Oz. My favorite show on TV. He got Emmy Awards. He got it all, man. He's done it all.
Dr. Oz, the real deal.
All right. Keep going, man. And thank you for coming by. I love when you come up here, man.
God bless you, Sway.
All right. God bless you, too. I want to sit in the audience, too, one time.
Whenever you want. Come on the stage.
Okay.
Of
You
course.
come on stage?
Come on stage.
No, you might ask me some embarrassing questions about my belly. I'm not ready yet. All right.